RMJ Movie Reviews back again. This time, this is an on-the-fly movie review of John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellem. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Those of y'all who all... got my words all jacked up. Those of you all who have been watching my channel since the very beginning know that I have been doing movie reviews since the very first John Wick movie came out. And my very first John Wick movie review from the theater is up on the channel somewhere in there somewhere, y'all. And so is Chapter 2. I love the John Wick series. One of my Sausage Factory brothers, Orc, recommended to me that maybe try a ranking. So I think I'm going to do that a little bit later on. Namely, probably a couple days. I'll do a ranking video. But right now, on to Chapter 3. I was extremely satisfied with John Wick Chapter 3. I loved it. Let's speak in action movie slang terms. Man, it was raw. It was raw. That means, guys, that it was very enjoyable and it met my action movie standards. It was so much, it was just really a lot of fun. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. The action, top notch. This was action packed all the way through from beginning to end. What I really appreciated about this film was that it kept the action as diverse as possible. You had a nice mixture of fist-to-fist combat, then you had your gung fu, and then you had some chases that, not car chases, but you had a motorcycle chase, a chase on a horse. Of course, there was an array of diverse ways to dispatch your villains. That's always a plus in action movies. And what I love about the John Wick series is that they have stripped all this CGI stuff down and they got back to old school basics, which is you have a character who is almost like a samurai, Bruce Lee-esque, Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson-esque type of persona character, and he don't do much talking. It's all about action, physically how he handles himself. At this point in the John Wick series, you know, I don't get into the conversations about when people talk about whether Keanu Reeves is a strong actor or a great actor. Look, there's some movies that Keanu Reeves has been very good in, and then there's some movies that maybe have not been as good as the others. I don't critique Keanu Reeves' acting. I just don't. I've always seen him in interviews, and he's a very personable, down-to-earth guy. He seems like a very kind man. Actually, digressing a little bit, a friend of mine, very, very good, one of my best friends, sister lives in Los Angeles, California, and she met him in a dental office and said that he's a very kind man. He's a very, very kind man. So she met him. She was actually working in this dental office that he came in to have some work done, and just said he's a very nice man, she said. But anyway, I don't even get into all that, talking about Keanu Reeves acting. But at this point, his character of John Wick, at least in this movie, he's pretty much performance-wise on the level of Steven Seagal in Under Siege 2. When you watch Under Siege 2, digressing, Steven Seagal just didn't even, at least in the first Under Siege, Seagal attempted a performance. Under Siege 2, Seagal was just basically like, look, I'm just here to kill people. That's where we're at in John Wick Chapter 3, and I'm cool with that. I don't expect nothing else. I came into the movie for the action, and like I said, it delivers diverse between gung fu, hand-to-hand combat, motorcycle chases, horse chases, and, oh, excuse me, I left out the dogs, actually attack dogs that are added into the action as well. Very satisfying movie. Now, let's get into, I'm going to get into all the positives. I'm not going to talk too much about the story. Look, this is leaving off just where number 2 ended. You know, he was excommunicated, so all the assassins in the world are trying to kill him. I mean, I know when they told when I heard the story and the plot, everybody was just like, oh, the entire world is trying to kill him. And it's kind of, I thought it was just pretty much John Wick 2, because everybody was trying to kill him in John Wick 2 too. So to me, in my mind, they're basically the exact same movie, John Wick 2 and 3. One's a little bit different because that was more revenge driven, with him going after people instead of them coming directly after him, although it kind of reached a point like that in the movie. But really, these two are essentially could just be crammed together as one movie. But what I will say, I like. Okay, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here because I'm so amped after the movie ended. Okay, I'm going to say that in comparing the movie, first of all, the first one is still the best film, hands down. But we're comparing the sequels here, right? And I must say, I think I will give John Wick Chapter 3 a slight nudge above 2. But keep in mind, they're both here. They're both here. In terms of the action of 3 and 2, of course the action in 2 or 3 is better than the action in part 1. I mean, the highlight of the first film was that club shootout. The reason to me John Wick 1 is still the very best of the series was, number one, nobody knew that was coming. You know, I only went to see John Wick on a whim because I used to watch one of the YouTube channels that I trust, and he was like, oh, it's pretty cool. So I went to go see him. I'm like, what is this John Wick movie? Oh, whatever, I'll go check it out. And I was just amped at all the gung fu and stuff. But it's because that was a stripped down small film that it was just the less is more approach. And it just used pure choreography and just the way they shot and cool music to drive the story, and that was the selling point of the original John Wick. You know, I think Chapter 2, for me, I love Chapter 2. They started to stretch it kind of with the story, so that was where number 2 lost me a tad bit. I still love it, but it lost me a tad bit when, you know, Lawrence Fishburne came out as the Rat King from Ninja Turtles and all this kind of stuff, and I was just kind of like, all right, this is kind of stretching a little bit. So it lost me a little bit, but pulled me back in because the action was just so fantastic. At this point, I had already kind of had preconceived notions in my mind that I was just going to get more of 2, the same style that 2 was, and that's pretty much the same. So I've heard some people complain about the length of the movie and them stretching the plot too far with the character of John Wick. At this point, like I was just making, going from what Keanu Reeves and the director said, John Wick 2 was John Wick 1 was a shot in the dark. They didn't expect it to become what it became. So this is something that they were creating as they go along. It had no original intention of becoming this trilogy. So for me, I didn't care that they went like that Keanu Reeves goes to other ends of the world and the Continental is stretching to all rooms of the universe and the world. I was just like, look, this is John Wick. He didn't kill 565 people. How much unrealistic or crazy and mind-stretching suspension of disbelief can you get? So I didn't care. I was with it because it was fun. The action in the very first... Oh, let me... What I will say is that the action in this movie is a little bit more martial arts driven. Meaning we're getting into, you know, samurai swords and... You know, really... And really having the martial arts... straight up martial arts presentation to the action. You know, cats coming out, you know, quiet ninja and all, literally like ninjas coming out. So that was really cool because although the first one and the second one has a lot of, I think it's jiu-jitsu and judo, if I'm right, with a lot of the fighting styles. It wasn't flat out in your face like these are ninja guys. And they went that route in this one, and I was perfectly fine with that. That was really cool because you have the great Mark Dacascos. And, you know, digressing a minute, you all, I'm very surprised at the lack of action knowledge that a lot of movie reviewers kind of have, because I've seen a lot of movie reviewers on YouTube who are saying, it's the guy from what was it, the show Mark Dacascos does? I've only seen pieces of it. Iron Chef or Super Chef Sushi, whatever that show is Mark Dacascos does. I'm looking like, are you YouTube movie reviewers kidding me? That's Mark Dacascos from Only the Strong, from, well, for us older guys, the Double Dragon movie, which was out I think for a day, that did have Robert Patrick with blonde hair from Terminator 2. I mean, Drive with Kadeem Hardison. Cradle to the Grave with Jet Li, which is not a great movie, but I thought him and Jet Li's fight was okay. Brotherhood of the Wolf, come on, y'all. How are y'all action fans that don't know that? How you gonna say it's just a dude from the suit set? Man, y'all better catch up with y'all action knowledge. Come on, y'all. This is Mark Dacascos. He's been in this game since way back in the day. I was ticked when I saw these movie reviewers. He was just the guy from the Iron Shed. No, he's Mark Dacascos. He's been in the game for a long time, guys. Show some respect to the action guys. Anyway, I digressed for a minute there. But anyway, when I saw Mark Dacascos in the mix, I was like, okay. So really a lot of Mark Dacascos, kind of what he brings from his old school action category, he brings with his henchmen too. Really cool stuff. Halle Berry, that was a section of the film that some people could be hit or miss about. I didn't expect her to really be in the movie. All I know is I saw interviews. Halle Berry said she wants to be in. They said they don't have a spot for her. Halle Berry, like Lawrence Fishburne, basically said, look, I want in, make a part for me. And that's what her section of the movie feels like. Like, she was plugged in there, and I don't care. I just want to see some cool ass kicking. And that's what she did. Halle Berry was getting it in. And there are multiple fist pumps. Multiple. Listen, guys, man, Halle Berry was doing her thing. She really did. That section with the attack dogs, awesome. And her and Keanu Reeves just mowing people down. Fantastic. So I will say that the action is very great. It's very brutal. I love all the gung fu and the techniques and the diversity in the action sequences. I want to say about Keanu Reeves too. I think Keanu Reeves, I believe, is 55 years old now. Good Lord, that man. God bless his heart. Because, I mean, I know this is all choreographed, but that's still a 55-year-old man rolling, and he's rolling around in camera. You know, he's and doing techniques and twisting wrists and slamming people, and he's rolling. That cannot be easy for a man his age. And the thing is, guys, movies film for what, 17, maybe 18 hours sometimes? So you got to think he's probably doing these sequences maybe for weeks at a time. You know, the very first fight in the knife shop, I mean, that probably took 2 weeks to shoot, I'm probably guessing, or a week. That's a lot for a man his age. So, man, he's fantastic in the action sequences. So those were really cool. So let me get to the negatives. The movie was long, but number 2 was long too. That was where number 2 kind of lost me. So, but I will say, knowing in my mind and having the assumption that this was going to be like 2, the length didn't bother me as much as it did with 2 because I wasn't expecting 2 to be that long. But it was a little long. There were some things they could have took out that quite frankly I just didn't care about. But it didn't. I know I've heard some people say it felt a little slow. Didn't bother me because I just already knew what I was getting into. So it didn't bother me. But it could have been shortened. The other negative was, and I heard some other reviewers say this, and I was kind of thinking like you guys are being overly critical, but I do agree with them. The final fight, which is very similar to Bruce Lee's Game of Death and the Kung Fu Nintendo game from the 1980s, if you all remember that on old school 1986 NES, where he climbed up the stairs. The style is very much like that. There's a part where he's fighting 2 gentlemen, and then they stop mid-fight and go, come on up. Now, the first time they did it, I was like, okay. But they did it multiple times, and then Mark Dacascos did it too in the final fight. And when they kept doing it over and over again, that's when I finally was out of the movie, and I was kind of like, nah, you kind of lost me on that one. So had they done it once, like, okay, I respect you, your honor, here's one free one. I would have been with it, but they did it over and over again, and it's just like, okay, you're just letting him win now. So now, even though he didn't already killed 100 people, I know he's gonna win. It kind of that took me out the movie, so I didn't like that. I did hear somebody else say he got kicked through too many windows. There's kind of a, Walter Hero, another 48 hours kind of situation with people flying through glass too many times. I'd agree with that. I think there was a part where he got kicked through like 6, and I'm not kidding y'all. I think he got kicked through like 7 plates of glass. It was about 7 or 6, but after a while I was like, okay, enough. I get it. That part I didn't like. And I will say, the final fight between John Wick, and Mark Dacascos, I thought was pretty disappointing. I wasn't bored by it. It still had some cool technique in there, but I had to keep in mind that, I am looking at 2 gentlemen who are up in age. And Mark Dacascos, I'm not sure how Mark Dacascos is. I think he's about the same age as Keanu Reeves. I think he's in his 50s too. But man, that dude, I wouldn't mess with him. He still moves like that movie Only the Strong, man. He's very swift, very good. But their fight, I just wasn't. And it was nice to see Mark Dacascos kind of be a little bit more laid back. And I like how his character was supposed to be very sternish, and then he kind of broke it and was like, I met you, man, and I am not disappointed. That was really good stuff. I really liked that. But their final fight was pretty disappointing. And I'm trying to think what else. The craziness of the story didn't really bother me. I've heard some people say they didn't like that he went to Casablanca to do one thing and it didn't ultimately pay off. I just didn't care. I mean, the John Wick movies never really had any story to begin with. These movies are strictly style, and they're popcorn, comic book movies. So I really just didn't care that they kind of backtracked on what he had to do and what he couldn't do and blah, 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 blah. I didn't really care. I was just only disappointed kind of like with those things I just mentioned. But I will say, it was a fun ride. I loved it. John, do I want a 4th? I will say right off no. And the reason I say no is because Keanu Reeves is 54, 55 years old now. If they do another one, that means he's going to be, 57, almost 58, almost 60. Okay? And I understand, like, when Stallone did Expendables, the first one and all that, he was, like, in his 60s. I get that. And he was still doing stuff, too. I just really think they stretched it as far as they could. And I really don't know how much more cool stuff they can do. So I would not like to see a 4th. I want them to leave it where it's at. Put John Wick to bed. It was a great trilogy. Leave it where it's at. Because if they do a number 4, it's going to ruin it. I'm telling you. I'm telling you all right now, mark my words. If they do a 4th, it's going to ruin it. And I tell you why. Because there's one action sequence in here it was 2 action sequences I didn't really particularly enjoy. The one on the motorcycles I didn't like, and the final fight with Mark Dacascos I just didn't really like. Now, the motorcycle fight, when the camera is coming up behind them and they pull the swords out, awesome. But majority of that fight was CGI. And the thing is, the John Wick series, and I know there's some CGI with the horse stuff, and there's little sprinkles of CGI here and there with the blood and the gunshot wounds up close and all that. But we go to these movies for in-camera, long takes, fighting with brilliant choreography and technique. That's why we come into it. And I kind of felt that motorcycle action sequence definitely started touching Transformers territory a little bit. And I don't want that from a John Wick movie. And I really have a strong feeling that if this movie does spectacular numbers, I don't think it'll do spectacular numbers because, the audience is not there for this type of action film. It's just not in. I mean, the audiences now are just too soft. They want everything to be PG-13 and nice, and I'm not even gonna let myself go into other places with that comment. But I would just say that these audiences are soft now, so I don't think this is gonna hit like astronomical numbers and it's gonna beat the Avengers and Pokemon and all that. I don't think it will. I think it's gonna do well, but I just don't think. And let's say if it did, if we get a fourth, it's gonna be more of that CGI stuff that was in that motorcycle fight. Mark my words, y'all. Mark my words. That's what's gonna happen. They're gonna morph it into something else. So it's not gonna stay what it is now. The money people are gonna say to them, "Why don't you try something a little bit different?" They're gonna do that. So what I say is, let's stop this dead in this track, leave it at 3, and let's be fine. Because we saw what happened with the diehards. Made number 4, and I know there's people who go, "Oh, well, Live for Your Die Hard is the greatest. It's the best sequel. It's better than 3 and 2," which people are full of it when they say that. They made it PG-13. It was bloodless, and I don't care what anybody says. It's not a Die Hard movie. It's a good PG-13 actioner, but it's not a Die Hard movie. And Bruce Willis is sleepwalking through that whole movie, so I don't care what you all say. Die Hard with a Vengeance is better than that, and even Die Hard 2 is better than that. And I'm telling you, if they make a 4th John Wick, something like that is going to happen. So let's leave it be. Let's leave it 3 movies. They're done. Okay? Keanu Reeves, I love him. He made his mark as one of the best, like, of action heroes. He went out with a bang at a man his age. Let's leave it at that. Move on to courtroom dramas. Bam. We're good. Keanu, nice send-off. I think that's where it needs to be. So I don't want a 4th. I'm trying to think. Is there anywhere else I can go with John Wick 3? Yeah, it was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. Aside from, those tiny little nitpicks about, the length and letting John Wick win in the fights and being really disappointed in the Mark Dacascos fight. It was a fantastic ride. I really, really enjoyed myself. And it's up to par with what the first 2 movies have done. So if you guys loved 1 and 2, you may not love this one, but you're still really gonna like it. So thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Don't forget to hit the little bell and leave comments down below about John Wick Chapter 3 RMJ Movie Reviews. I'll see you soon.